those.
Weird science
is the revolution.
Weird science
is the revolution.
Weird science
is the revolution.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Weird Science Comics YouTube channel, where I'm going to be going through the latest issue of Amazing Spider-Man. And it's one of those things that I'm kind of enjoying, but not loving. I want to love it. I want to love Spider-Man, but Zeb Wells coming out of the Beyond stuff, he just isn't giving enough answers to questions that he's posing. And the questions he's posing kind of seem to be kind of sus questions anyway. Almost triggers to people with Mary Jane having this new family. Everybody pissed off at Peter. Aunt May almost bankrupt because of what Peter did 6 months ago that we don't really know what that is. So you're sitting here waiting for answers. But in the meantime, I'm trying to enjoy the individual issues and arcs, and this Hobgoblin arc is okay. There's just something missing in this book, and we'll talk about it as we go through here, but it just doesn't seem to have the heart and soul that I usually have seen in a Spider-Man book, though I'm not a lifelong Spider-Man reader, so maybe I'm just wrong, but it is written by Zeb Wells, and I'll say it's Amazing Spider-Man number 13, written by Zeb Wells, pencils by John Romita Jr., inks by Scott Hanna, colors by Marcelo Menez, and letters by VC's Joe Caramagna. Here's a little bit of the recap. Spider-Man is going head-to-head with not one but two hobgoblins. Peter's friend Ned leads in the first and original Roderick Kingsley. Roderick is again messing with Ned's head, and has led to nothing but pain for Ned, his wife Betty, and their new baby Winston. Can Spider-Man help them? Heck, can Spider-Man even survive this? Probably not. I disagree with that recap. I think Spider-Man will be okay by the end of this, but we end up having a reveal at the end that we see who's pulling the strings and why. I'm not going to fully spoil that. I think it's a little too soon to be spoiling things that big, but if you are reading and paying attention to what is coming up in the Spider books, you might have already guessed who that might be. But in that recap, the talk of, oh my God, Ned, Betty, and new baby Winston, nothing but pain in their lives for this. Have we really seen that? Have we really gotten a lot of personal connection in this book? I think the best personal connection and character scene that we've had was when Peter did ask Felicia Hardy out, Black Cat out on a date. I thought that was pretty good, but overall, you have Zeb Wells who kind of seems to be cramming scenes together without a lot of connective tissue and without a lot of character moments to drive the story. And I think that it comes to roost big time in this issue because, again, it says that Ned, Betty, and new baby Winston have been in pain. We haven't really seen any of them. You ended up last issue where Peter went to Betty. Hey, is Ned here? Oh, no, he's down the docks in his office that he's trying to keep from me. Okay, thanks, Betty, and leaves. And yeah, Betty's crying on the panel like she does in this issue as well by the end. But you're not getting that personal touch that you usually get. And even when Peter goes to talk to Ned and even confront him, because you end up where he's yelling stuff about, the hobgoblin, all that, and then reveals that in that office, there is the Winkler machine, and that is not the machine that turns you into the Fonz. It'd be cool if it was. I'm telling you, it'd be real cool if it was. But he says, oh, don't you get it? I'm being controlled by Roderick once again with the Winkler machine. So all this leads to Peter fighting the two hobgoblins, as it said, but you also have Norman, who in a sus way is not supposed to be able to really track Peter at all time and go in video-wise, but he has. He had his computer, not that he wanted his computer, but his assistant came and gave him his computer so he could do some stuff, probably bored there, maybe do a little work, but he ends up right away going and looking in on Spider-Man, and Spider-Man is in big trouble, and it's a good thing that you had Norman do this, but I was afraid that it was going to be another one of those plays. Norman is trying to be a good guy, but he keeps doing things that are going to make him look bad. Whether or not he's being bad, they aren't good looks. And last issue, you did have Peter say to Norman, no more lies. And we talked about this on the last podcast. if you end up needing to trust somebody, it doesn't matter if it's a little, big, medium-sized lie. You can't lie at all. If you are there to gain trust in an area where there's a real slim possibility of getting trust. I mean, this is Norman Osborn trying to get Peter to trust him that he has gotten past the goblin stuff. Now, as a reader, you want that to happen, I think. Some people may not. I do, because I do like Norman, and I think that he's really trying. And he actually has more heart in this book than anybody. So I don't want that to go away, but I realize that Zeb Wells is using this as a device as well. But he ends up seeing this fight, a fight gone wrong. Spider-Man's getting the crap kicked out of him. He's fighting two hobgoblins. That is a tall order. So he yells for the nurse and says, "Hey, nurse, we need somebody to go. Cops need to get there. Send the police to this address. Spider-Man's in big trouble." The nurse is like, "Okay, we did that. Now you just rest because there's nothing you can do." But as she is saying that, he's looking at this golden prototype on his computer, and he's like, "Yeah, there is nothing I can do." You're starting to do things that you don't want to do this, Norman. Please. So we go then to the big fight, and a lot of this issue is fighty, punchy. And again, usually you're going to get more quips and things like that. And this is deadly serious. Spider-Man's in big trouble. He's trying to take down, Roderick mainly. I don't think he wants to take down Ned, but he's got to stop him. And so you don't really get that, fun-loving Spider-Man fight here, but it ends up, the tension ramps up, and it does look like Peter is in real big trouble as this goes on. And luckily, though, before you end up having Roderick pretty much order and control Ned to kill Peter, you end up having Norman show up. He shows up as the golden glider, goblin here, and smashes in and saves Peter at that point. Now, you end up having Roderick and Ned. They want to get away, Roderick especially, so they get on their glider. They go off, and as hobgoblins are wont to do, you end up having Roderick be a real piece of crap, turns on Ned and throws him off the glider to be a distraction. Peter saves him, but once he saves him and gets him on the rooftop, Ned just starts choking out Peter. And this is a Peter that earlier you even had Ned with the electrical gauntlets end up shocking Peter, which ended up removing his mask. So as Ned is there choking out Peter, looking right in his eyes. Now, Ned's still a hobgoblin here, but he is choking out Peter more than he really is choking out Spider-Man. So that's a big play there. But as that goes on, Norman doubles back and punches the crap out of Ned, knocks him out. So he saves Peter again. But he keeps punching and punching. Ned is knocked out. He is unconscious. Peter has to stop Norman. Norman has blood all over that sexy new gold beetle suit. Right? Oh, my goodness gracious. And he does thank Peter. Thank you. I went a little too far. So it's showing you that. And this is the thing. Norman knows that there's that possibility. He doesn't want to get in these situations because of that, because of what he could turn back into. He's aware of this. It's pretty much a good analogy to being a drug addict or somebody who has any sort of addiction. If you get back into that swing of things, you may not be able to help yourself. And now he has done that. That is the strings. Those are the strings that are being pulled in the background, as we see by the end of this issue. But things end up wrapping up. Norman has a lot of money. He has a lot of lawyers. So he's not going to get in any sort of trouble. And he's able to pretty much skedaddle Peter out of there without his identity being revealed. That is maintained. And then he goes and talks to his assistant, because the lawyers, the assistants, they all show up here at the scene. The lawyers are talking to the cops while Norman's talking to his assistant and says, "Hey, thank you. I mean, we have to thank you for saving Spider-Man. If you wouldn't have brought my computer to the hospital, he would have been dead." And she says, "What? I didn't bring your computer to the hospital. Why would I do that? I want you to rest. You're supposed to be resting." He's like, "Oh, no. Oh, drat. Who could it be?" So, yeah, that's a big play. Those are the strings. But before we get to see exactly what that is, you have Peter go to talk to Betty. And again, these scenes either are too quick, it has weird interactions, whatever it is, I'm not getting the feels from them. When Peter comes and says, hey, I want to see how Ned's doing. Is he okay? I also want to say Norman has hired lawyers for him. It'll be fine. The whole deal will be, everybody will be aware that he was being controlled by Roderick because of the Winkler device. It didn't turn into the Fonz. I just want to remind everybody of that. But you end up where Betty, I don't know. I mean, she is a reporter. She's heard things, and it is dealing with Ned. Unfortunately, the Winkler device wasn't at his office. It wasn't there. So when they go to see that as that evidence type deal, okay, if you say that Roderick Kingsley was the one in command of you and used the classic Winkler device to make you the Hobgoblin, all right, it's not there. So it looks like he's lying. I don't even know that Kingsley won't even turn it around and say that, in fact, Ned was the one who was leading him all along. But it doesn't seem like Roderick's in that much problem or trouble, because we end the issue where he goes off and he goes back to his lab, location unknown. He has his cronies there. He's like, hey, and there's the Winkler device. He ended up having them get it and bring it to his location. So, okay, Kingsley, you son of a gun. You sus bastard. You ended up setting up Ned so bad, and now it makes it seem like Ned was just Hobgoblin on his own, no Winkler device. Now you have it. And he's like, okay. And he starts revving it up to sit in it. And you get a talk. You get a word bubble from off panel. Oh, who might this be? That basically says that all this was about Norman and pulling the strings because his sins have come back to haunt him, as you end up seeing Roderick in the Winkler device itself and this character activating it and using it. So all in all, for me getting mad at Roderick, it's not even Roderick. Roderick is also being controlled, but this is all about Norman and all about this mysterious character that you will know, especially if you have been reading Spider-Man and the Beyond stuff that Zeb Wells was also involved with. And if you know what's coming up, it all makes sense of how this is playing. The issue itself is good. It's not great. It's good. And where it fails again, I said at the beginning, where's the heart and soul of this book? Because you usually will have certain things. And I'm not saying you always have to have Mary Jane, right? But having Mary Jane have another family and not wanting to talk to Peter, that kind of throws you off. Then I don't have to have Aunt May in every issue, but Aunt May's pissed off at Peter. They're not really getting along and they're kind of cold to each other. And Aunt May almost went bankrupt because of these bills that she ended up having to pay for Peter. So it's not just the idea that these characters aren't in the book. It's the reasons why they aren't. And then when they're in it, it feels off. It all feels off. And I don't think that Zeb Wells is giving us a lot of character moments. I think that he's going from scene to scene, and it's just not jiving with me overall that I'm caring. I'm not sitting there worrying about baby Winston while they end up where we hear that Ned's in big trouble and the Winkler machine wasn't. But that's what I should be worried about. That is a father that has a newborn that might go to jail for a long time. But I don't even you think of that until afterwards. And oh, yeah, Betty is just somebody who's answered the door twice and cried a couple times. But I never feel like there's any warmth. And Peter feels like right now that he's not even having fun being Peter or Spider-Man. When this run started, me and Jason were talking about it. It felt like Peter as Peter Parker, down a little. Oh, man, that thing that happened 6 months is a real pain in the butt and everybody hates me. But when I put on the Spider-Man costume, I'm having some fun. This is where I can forget about those troubles and just be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And it doesn't feel like that as much anymore. And because of that, my enthusiasm is down. Like I said, technically, I think that the issue is pretty good. I like John Romita's art for the most part. I think that it was a little down at points in this as compared to some of the other issues, but I think it was just the fight scenes and how it was going back and forth. There really wasn't a ton for him to do that would really impress you, and I think that maybe his fight choreography was a little off, but overall, though, it's just missing that thing, that je ne sais quoi, if you will, but that is that, and I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. I could go up to a 7, but I couldn't go. I'm just going to stay 6.5. 6.5 out of 10. I'd like to hear what people think about this run in general and this issue in particular, but we'll see how it goes. I hope that it can get better. I just need something to grab onto that kind of pulls at the heartstrings and gets me kind of involved emotionally, not just reading it and, hey, that's cool and move on. I want to love it. I want to like it so much that I can't wait for the next issue. It hasn't happened yet, but maybe it will.